let's address Rick's issues. First of all, the cut on his hand. You can't tell me that a seasoned veteran of the zombie wars doesn't see a giant knife protruding out of the shoulder of a walker. And what are you going to do to block it? You go right to that area. I'm not buying that. So, eh. Second, um, the whole thing about infection. Now, let's talk about in the last season, just before they got to Alexandria, they were fighting walkers on the road, and Sasha slashed Abraham's arm with the same knife that she was using to kill walkers. Abraham didn't get infected, and I don't think Rick is going to get infected either. However, there is a possibility of something like tetanus or gangrene or any kind of like non-walker virus oriented infection. And people are talking about Rick losing his hand in the future. So that's another angle with Rick's hand, but I don't think he's going to turn. And the next thing we're going to come to is my common sense moment of the episode, and that is every cliche in the book about horror movies, action movies, whatever says if you're using a car for something during a mission and you don't have to shut it off, don't shut it off. And what does Rick do? He shuts it off. And we all know what's going to happen when you shut that car off. You're not going to start it again. Now, I did break down that scene where the wolf guy was shooting at Rick, and you do see sparks coming out of the dashboard, but when he's cranking that key, it sounds to me like it's either out of gas or it's not catching. It's maybe not catching spark. There's something wrong with the sparks. I'm guessing it's not out of gas because they would keep that van or the travel Winnebago thing, whatever. They'd keep that gassed up since it was a major part of the mission. But my whole point being is that there could be something wrong with the ignition and it's not catching. I don't think it's because one of the wolves shot the dashboard. So this last point that I was going to make about Rick, I thought was just going to be one little blurb and I was going to go on with it, but then it turned out to be something way more than I thought it was going to be. First of all, let's talk about the jar of either applesauce or baby food that Rick found on one of the wolves. When I first saw this episode, it meant that this is going to cement Rick's position on not allowing Daryl to recruit people for Alexandria. Daryl's going to get butthurt. He's going to get all emo and brood. They're going to tease the bromance between Rick and Daryl at an end. And then, of course, that won't happen because Rick's always going to be Daryl's main man. So then I was looking in the comments section of a Make a Path Presents video. In fact, it's the one for Carol's A that I featured in the last re-review. And there's a YouTuber named Marcelo Cruz that brought this up, and it completely turned a whole new avenue open to me. And that is Judith, has Judith been kidnapped? Now, that means that the wolves have Judith and they have baby food to feed Judith and so forth. And I know it's kind of far-fetched, but let's go back to what I was asking at the end of episode 2, and that is Carol comes in, puts the casserole in, looks at Judith in the baby monitor. Carl comes in, 45 minutes later, doesn't look in the baby monitor, so we don't confirm that Judith is there. Just like we don't confirm that Glenn is alive, we don't confirm that Judith is there because we don't see her in the baby monitor. Now that is going to open up the floodgates for everybody that hates Enid and thinks that she is a spy for the wolves to say, well, Enid kidnapped Judith. And it's possible if she is a spy for the wolves, then she definitely would kidnap Judith. But I don't see that happening. It can happen. But yeah, so that's the big thing is I don't think that Enid kidnapped Judith. I think she just took off. But it is possible that one of the wolves got into the house. So that's all of my theories on Rick. Check out my reaction review episode on Sunday night. I'm Rockula, and this is Rockula Retrospective.